Vitaly, friends, I am Vitaly Portnikov. CNN knew about the TV company back in the Pentagon. It put Tomahawk missiles and more missiles in Ukraine before the idea for the day. And it will not be given in signs on the potential of the most see received in the state. Even in Tim Contagion, and without the American Ministry of Guilt, the Tomahawk stocks from the received states have really not yet been recognized once by the president himself with the Donald received in the state. In Tim Varda on the target, you again to the Pentagon, in the dos Ostrich president of the obtained states and Ukraine, like Trump. Don't layer on pitney before Molivochi on de Ukrainini missiles. In that place, the President of the United States Pete Armchair still needs such missiles for America itself. Ukrainians will not be able to launch these missiles, not in a chat, for their required sprat months, and the Americans themselves. You do not choose to launch missiles at Russia. That the entire claim of Donald Trump was hacked to death by his eyes firm an oyster, and with Russian President Putin. And oyster, and with the President of Ukraine Donald Trump tore off the phone of Times, and with the President of Russia and her Times. He has an expression that the Russian President himself, but the American colleagues on the pogroms of Donald Trump, PPR bilsh with a hell of a compromise. Even before the end of the fire on the Russian-Ukrainian front, below it was now the Russian-American summit in Anchorage. Already in a few days, it became obvious with the rise of Donald Trump and with reality. And the topic of the Tomahawk from that hour, it is not obvious that President Trump, having felt the statements of Russian officials in the armchair, will be launched at the sovereign territory of the Russian Federation again, at the time of the Tomahawk. Qualified Yak American, not Ukrainian launch. Ukrainians themselves do not launch a Tomahawk. Well, having found out Donald Trump himself, Kola said that the Ukrainian temples in the Tomahawk system, against the sprats of months. Donald Trump can traditionally beat Russia's reaction to the launch of the Tomahawk, and the remembered resiliency to the emptiness of a direct conflict between the United States and the Russian Federation. To the conflict can still be produced before a nuclear war. It does not mean that Trump on Yakov's desktop is over. The folder in the Pentagon from Pogo to Tomahawk Day in Ukraine is not ready to turn to this torture. An ally of Ukraine can become a further escalation of mutual between the two largest nuclear and attempts from the party suite. Putin is not paying compliments to Trump's address, but lapping up the American president by testing potential missiles and nuclear discharges, and can develop the sovereign territory of the most developed states. And trying out the rocket shop, just on the aphids of the American president, will complete the Russian-Ukrainian guilt, and Trump's direct divination of the whole thing away from the attack on the Russian Federation, no longer an attack on Ukraine, but an attack on the United States of America itself. And Trump sounded like a politician. I wanted him to be respected as a weakling. And the power elections, and for the cordon of Revka, I am oriented to the Duma. And such is the rank of the recent statement of the American president about the cob of nuclear testing. As you turn to confrontation crayfish in cold guilt, do not elect the Russian president from blackmail, and are ready to see Putin with imperious blackmail. This rank can be said even at the escalation gatherings. The yaks have become a favorite route for Putin to attend the Russian-American summit in Alaska. TPR has Vishov and Donald Trump himself ready to escalate the bags from the Russian Federation all the way to nuclear tests, with the ones received in the state. In such situations, with the burial grounds at the bottom of Ukraine, the worst arsenal for bombing the objects of the whiskey fishing and energy complex on the territory of the Russian Federation can be used by Donald Trump. Richly else will sail at view of the Russian president. I still notice calls to Trump and compliments to the address of his squad before the new blackmail, and to the thought of Putin and Trump, that America's fate is taken in direct conflict with Russia. It is not Ukraine. Trump can be just on Ukraine. And on Ukraine Tomahawks. And so on the yak, we, of course, change the point of view of the leaders of European Ukraine. Even before the transfer of missiles to Ukraine for the important strategic objects on the territory of the Russian Federation, and the pretense of Russia itself on the territory by hitting decobium missiles, and not tilky eyelids on the Russian on the autopriority complex and objects are important for Russian guilt and against Ukraine. With this rank, we can still find out about the Pentagon. Maybe the weeks and months are already important. Escalation on the Russian-Ukrainian front, and this kind of thing has bags between Russia and with the received states, to gain new and new momentum. And I will extort new and new crocs at gatherings for further escalation in bags between two armed and goods from the party suite. And economically, the truce is reached by Donald Trump and with the head of the People's Republic of China Xi Jinping, not for escalation. And it is possible to scale up the Russian-Ukrainian blame on the neighboring powers of Central Europe from Ukraine. Not so much for the departure of this European Ukraine, until today Ukraine has such a reset, as to slow down the dragon, and not allow the Russian Federation to throw its aggression against neighboring Ukraine and Central European Ukraine. So what else is talking about the war for Russia, and about the prospects outside of Ukraine and the reset? And it is also possible to attack the confrontation can be richly on the careless for Moscow, no Russian-Ukrainian guilt. Diakuyu. Finish on the topic of the channel, subscribe to it, subscribe to social on the channel in Patreon. Helps to develop these resources at the point of sponsorship in YouTube itself.